I like to ask you, Mr. President, the situation in the country shows that there's a deep foreign currency crisis now. How do you think for the 2 years which you have mentioned, will we go through a financial and economic crisis? And there have been a lot of criticism for during the Black Monday and Tuesday, the Black for the ruble, I mean. There have been a lot of criticism for the government. Do you agree with the criticism? Well, I've said that in the most unfavorable scenario of the foreign economic situation, the existing situation would last for about 2 years. But I believe that it is not a necessary scenario because the situation might improve earlier. It might begin improving in the first quarter, in the middle of the next year, or at the end of next year. No one could tell that for sure. A lot of factors of uncertainty exist there. As far as the central bank activities are concerned, well, I don't think I could call the situation the crisis, or you may call it whatever you want. But I believe that I said quite clearly that the central bank and the government on the whole are acting correctly and adequately to the situation existing. I believe that some things, well, the criticism is voiced from the experts as well. I believe that some actions could have been made quicker, but I believe that the quickness must be the pragmatic approach which actually the central bank and the government is doing. What are they doing? They have risen the key interest rate, and I believe that this rate would not be raised for all the period of those difficult circumstances linked with the foreign economic situation, but in this or that way I believe the economy will adjust. Why am I optimistic? Because the economy will adjust to life and work in the conditions of the low fuel prices, low oil prices. This will happen. The question is how quickly such adjustment will take place. If the prices will remain low or will be even lower, maybe lower than $60 per barrel, even $40 per barrel, the figure doesn't matter here. The economy will structure itself. How quickly it will do so, it is difficult to say, but it will happen, and I'd like to highlight it, because the life gives us its facts. And what is the central bank doing? It raised the interest rate. What does it have to do, and what is it doing else? What else is it doing? In order to stabilize the national currency, we might squeeze up the ruble liquidity a little bit. We might give access to the participants of the economic activity to the currency, foreign currency liquidity, and the central bank is doing that. His rate on the currency is 0.5. The central bank must feel it themselves how exactly to act. We mustn't give away our forex reserves and not waste them in the market, but we must give the loan resources to people, and the central bank is doing that. One of the tools is the so-called repo, which happens that they give a loan to a month, a year, a week, or a day. And this is returnable money, which gives an opportunity to the participants of the economic activity to use the currency resources. It is done correctly, but maybe it must be done a bit more quickly. Well, of course, I see and hear the criticism towards the central bank, towards the president of the central bank. The criticism might be grounded or not, but the government must not forget about its responsibility either. You must work with the same exporters which have good currency benefits. The chairman of the government met the leaders of our largest companies, and there are some results that have come from this meeting. Of course, some of them, or many of them, need to pay their loans. and need to think about the situation in their companies, because a company, just as a citizen, always thinks about how to save something for the worst times, etc. It is a correct economic behavior or not. Economic logic shows that it is not, but the companies are doing that nevertheless. But we see that there are still positive results for that. And we need to take some other measures. I mean, the government. What am I talking about? I'm talking about fighting inflation, which is the task of the central bank, first and foremost, but there are some things which we have mentioned, by the way, publicly. I mentioned that when we met with the government, which must be managed by the government. For example, the fuel prices, I mean the gasoline prices, the food prices, this has to be tackled with by the government. And you must work with that manually. You should monitor it every day, every week. You should meet the producers, the market participants, the trade networks, the retailers, the oil companies, which have monopolized our market a lot. Our Federal Anti-Monopoly Service should work well, and all those actions should be joint and collective and should not intrude with the inner competence of the central bank and the government, but the coordination must be there, and it should be timely. Of course, we might criticize Ms. Nabiullina, but on the whole, we mustn't forget that their policy is adequate. And it is not only the central bank which is responsible for the economic situation in the country, not alone.